Hey guys, it's Kevin, my review for the fourth episode of Devs, and as you guys know, I am really loving this show so far. I'm really liking where they are headed with things and things like that, but I have to say, considering the way the last episode wrapped up, I really did not know how things were going to go from here. I mean, it seemed like we were on a path where things were starting to go well for Lily. So I guess I kind of saw this coming, like what was going to happen in this episode. I saw it coming. But I certainly did not expect it to be clearly as much of a catastrophe as it was in this episode. And for me, this was easily the best episode so far. I really loved what we got here. We got to see a lot more of like the secondary characters as well and things like that. And I just found this to be a very strong episode overall. But we're just getting to right now. So starting off right off the bat with Lily, which, holy shit, where to begin? I think the first thing to really bring up when it comes to Lily is the sequence of Forrest and Katie and them, in the, watching that projection and things like that. And we realize that this is actually a projection of the future. And not only that, but supposedly it's actually Lily. And supposedly the show is making us think that Lily has only 48 hours left to live. She's going to die in 2 days. And Forrest believes that this is an unavoidable situation. Like, this is going to happen. It's foretold. You can't possibly change it. And I'm interested in seeing what that really is all about. But I will say right now, I do not think that Lily is going to die by the end of this show. I feel like that'd be way too predictable. I feel like that's what they want us to believe. And knowing Alex Garland, he is not someone that usually is this predictable. So I really do feel like there's something more going on here that we're not seeing yet. And I think I have an inkling of what that might be. And I'll get to that when we talk about one of the subplots. But I really like the way they set that up. I think they did a really great job of kind of making us think that maybe this will be the end, but I really don't think that Lily is going to die. However, I don't think things are necessarily going to go her way either, because things just go from bad to worse for her in this episode. I mean, she starts off on a real high. She's feeling really good about what she's done. But I do like that Jamie is not nearly as optimistic. He's actually getting a little bit worried that, like, maybe she should alert the cops about this. Maybe she should get them involved. And look, I will agree with her that getting the cops involved is not a good idea, because Devs wants to keep what they do as secretive as possible. They don't want anyone else to know. And hell, if Lily does that, then she probably is dead if she just, tells the cops, if she just calls the cops and things like that. So it's not really that simple. But also Jamie hasn't been in that situation either. So it makes sense why he feels that way. But like I said, Lily really is on a high at this point, and she also really feels like she has Kenton kind of wrapped around her finger at this point. But I have to say, the moment when Kenton went to Lily and told her, like, oh, I have this doctor that I want you to meet with, I knew something was not going to go right there, because it just all seemed too easy. She meets with this psychiatrist, and it seems to be going over pretty well. She talks about these struggles she had with drugs and things like that, and how her mother was kind of absent in her life. What I'm wondering is, even though she's trying to keep up the illusion that she has schizophrenia, is any of what she is selling to this doctor actually true? Because we already know that Lily had this, narrative in the second episode where she basically had no one. She had no one to talk to. She wasn't living with anyone at the time. She just felt alone in that way. So I'm kind of wondering if, even though she was bullshitting him, I'm still wondering if maybe some of what she was saying was actually true. I'm not entirely sure yet, but I did really like the way this scene played out, where you definitely did feel like this was legit. Like, things were going to go well for her. She was going to be able to keep this up. But the second that doctor went to Kenton, I knew things were about to go downhill. And oh boy, do they ever. Not only do we have this scene of Kenton basically trying to subtly tell Lily, like, yeah, I know you're lying, and this is what's going to happen if you keep up this lie. We're going to treat you. We're going to get you into a mental facility. Like, he's really playing her like a fiddle. And I have to say, Zach Grenier, I know the actor's name now, okay? I'm sorry, I didn't say the actor's name the last episode. I know the actor's name now. He is doing such a fantastic job as Kenton because every single thing he says, it sounds sincere, but it also doesn't. Like, you can tell he is playing her in that way, and he always feels like the smartest man in the room, and that's what makes him so scary. He's really relishing this character. A lot of people compared him to the Terminator and things like that, and I do think that's a fair comparison because he is so far the guy that when you need someone to take out, he just takes you out right away. But I think he also is channeling that of, like, say, you know, he also is very much channeling, you know, someone that is very smart. And it's like the Terminator if he was a little bit smarter, if he wasn't, like, robotic in that way. Kenton very much, I think, is the one that is controlling things. You very much do see that at this point. And when he gets in that car and you know right away that they're not going to her apartment, and pretty much now it's like Kenton versus Lily. Like, she crashes the car into that railing and she just leaves him there, and she realizes, oh shit, Jamie was right. Maybe I do need to actually alert the cops about what's going on. And I like that she didn't leave her name and things like that. But then the way things ended with her being taken away because they don't want people to not know that she's lying and things like that. They want to just commit her to this mental facility basically so she can be punished in that way. And then not only that, but Jamie is also taken away. Was such a thrilling ending. I did not at all think this was the way things were going to go. But I will say right now, I do not think Jamie's going to die. I really don't. I've heard many people say this is the end of Jamie. I really don't think it is, because what they're starting up with Jamie, I think, is really well done. We get a really nice subplot with him that honestly is kind of making Jamie one of my favorite characters at this point. I don't know if he's my favorite like everyone else, but he definitely is becoming one of my favorite characters. Because the scene we get of him where he really is doing everything he can to try to win Lily back over, to the point where he's cleaning up his apartment and, you know, he closes the door and then that one shelf falls. That was such a lighthearted and fun scene. And it really does show how Jamie is really trying to help Lily. His heart is always in the right place. But that's exactly why he's also, I think, a big liability to Lily right now. So while I don't think Jamie's going to die in the next episode, I wouldn't be surprised if they do kill him off. Because at this point, I think he does have two choices. One, he's either going to ally with Kenton and just spill everything and that'll be it, or he's going to withhold the information from Kenton and find himself gradually being tortured until he's inevitably killed. So I think he really has two choices at this point. I'm interested in seeing where he's really headed. And the way that Kenton, like, acknowledged him at the end kind of seems like he knows more about Jamie than we do. I don't know if you guys got that same vibe, but it definitely felt that way. And I'm also wondering if the homeless man, Karl, also factors into that. Because remember the scene in the second episode where Jamie goes to Karl, tells him, like, to not tell anyone about what's going on. Karl said he, like, had his back and things like that. And then we get a scene in this episode where Kenton is going to Karl, and Karl talks about, like, he's going to protect Lily at all times. He doesn't plan on deviating from her. So I'm wondering what that is really all about. I think that definitely is a very interesting plot we have brewing. But like I said, everything going on the Lily and Kenton and Jamie of it all was really well done. I think they're really heating up this plot quite nicely, and I'm very excited to see where that's going to go. For me, though, this week, the most intriguing stuff of this episode actually wasn't the Lily plot, because while I am really liking that, the subplot we get with all of the devs crew and them trying to, you know, work on this projection, I thought was really well done, because it gives us a window into some of these characters, specifically Lyndon, who Cailee Spaeny is just so damn good in this role. I can't praise her enough here. What she's doing is already really hard. She has to play a teenage boy, and obviously she isn't a teenage boy, so that's already hard to do, but she is really selling it, and she's doing a really good job, I think, in this episode of showing that Lyndon is someone that really wants to help devs. He wants to make a contribution. You know, everyone's complaining that the the projections they have, they're too fuzzy. They can't focus on them because they're just too loud. There's like this ringing in their ears constantly. They just can't stand it. So Lyndon really wants to try to modify that. And I love the scene where he's like laying out how he did it, where he actually found a way to somehow modify it and actually have Jesus's voice like be coherent, like you could tell what he was saying. Was such a great scene, and you feel like this is going to be this great breakthrough for Lyndon, and I really felt for him there. I thought they did a really great job with us feeling this false hope for Lyndon, that like this is such a great thing that he's done. Forrest is going to be so impressed. But it's actually the complete opposite. And this is leading Forrest down a very interesting path where he's kind of a perfectionist at this point. That's kind of what it's all about. Like, Forrest wants everything to be a certain way. He doesn't want to deviate from it at all. And a small deviation like what Lyndon did is detrimental to the team, pretty much. And so he just outright fires Lyndon right then there, which I was shocked by. I could not believe that Lyndon was was fired that quickly. And I wasn't happy with it at first, but then it really got me thinking, this is setting up a really interesting arc for Lyndon, because Lyndon is now someone that has been wronged by devs, and who also has been wronged by devs. Well, that'd be Lily. So I have no doubt that these two are somehow going to team up, that Lyndon's going to find her. We're going to see Lyndon on his own. I do not think this is going to be the end of his character at all. But I also really loved Stuart, who, yes, I remembered his name this time. I really love Stuart in that scene, because even though those two were bickering, there was a genuine connection there. Stuart kind of has this fatherly sort of role towards Lyndon, in the sense where when Lyndon goes too far, Stuart is the one to try to reel him in and nurture him and tell him that, what Forrest is saying, he is legit about. He wants to let Lyndon know that, like, Forrest is not taking this lightly. Like, if you spill anything, you will die. And he wants Lyndon to get out of there as soon as possible, because Lyndon is already very hot-headed. He's very hurt by what happened. He's pretty much coming out guns blazing at this point. And I like that Stuart just like gently sends him away. I really love the way that was done. But I do have to say, in terms of the projection, I really do think this is setting up Lyndon dying. I really do think that's what's going to happen here. I think the show wants us to believe that Lily is going to be sacrificed, that Lily's going to die, when I think it's actually going to be Lyndon. And I think that's going to lead to those two teaming up. I think Lyndon is very much going to turn against Debs, and I do think he's going to end up dying, because, I mean, if you look at Lyndon and Lily, they have very similar, like, looks in terms of, like, even their hair and things like that. Like, they look very similar. You could look at a picture of Lily and Lyndon, and you might think it's the same character, because they do have very similar features in that way. So I kind of do feel like the show is setting up Lyndon actually being the one to die. And if that's the case, it's going to be very sad, but I really love the way they set up Lyndon's arc in this episode. Where he's going is very intriguing, and I thought it was just a really great showcase for Cailee Spaeny as an actress to just really show off her chops. Again, she's an actress I've consistently been impressed by, even in things like Pacific Rim Uprising, which was terrible. She was like one of the best parts of that movie. I've always found her to be a really strong character actress, and this is turning out to maybe be her finest work yet. It's certainly her most impressive. I'm consistently stunned by how good she really is in this role, how well she able is to convince me that she is a teenage boy. I think she's just doing a phenomenal job at that, and I'm eating up every single second of what Spaeny is doing. And again, I also really love Lyndon's arc in this episode. I think they're doing some really excellent stuff there. But then the only other thing to really talk about is Forrest and Cailee. We get a little bit more insight into what's going on, and I like that for the first time in this show, Cailee is not on the side of Forrest, which we've kind of been getting glimpses of. The show has kind of been hinting at the fact that Cailee has wronged Forrest before, but we've also seen Cailee almost be like a slave to Forrest. Like, she's always subservient to him no matter what. She's kind of like, you know, his protege in that way. Like, she's always tied him. She's second in command. And I like that she's actually upset that he fired Lyndon, because Lyndon was a great asset for them. And I do believe her when she says that, like, Lyndon was really the person that could have worked things out, that really could have put them on a better path. But because Forrest is just so focused on the idea of perfection and things, you know, one little thing not being correct, that's what sets him off. That's what's going to ruin everything. He even brings up to Cailee how, you know, if someone's sitting to the left and not to the right, that is a major deviation to him. Just minor things like that. It's really interesting in seeing just how much of a perfectionist Forrest really is here. And when he has that scene of seeing Amaya and seeing that Cailee has been able to bring her back, Nick Offerman just sold that so well, because you see how awestruck he is by the fact that his daughter is there, but he also just isn't satisfied. Like, even though he is enamored by it, he's also not fully satisfied, because it's not fully his daughter. It's not fully the way he wants her to look. And I just found that to be a really well done scene. And Nick Offerman, again, he is absolutely one of the best parts of this entire series. I'm just loving what he's doing as Forrest as a character, getting some really meaty scenes like the one he has with Cailee, and I just love what we are getting to see there. I think they did a really great job of just showing the kind of person that Forrest is, the way he runs things. It's very specific. He has a way of doing things, and if anyone tries to, you know, do something different than that, that gets to him. He simply can't accept that. He will not accept something that is not the way that he wants it to be. And I think that's just a really interesting idea. I love what they're doing with Forrest as a character, and I'm really excited to see where this is going to go. And it does pretty much confirm my theory that this really is all leading to him bringing his daughter back. You know, we don't exactly know how he's going to do that, but he does plan on bringing Amaya back in some form. This is his main goal, but he needs it to be the way that he wants it to. And I do think that that is going to be his fatal flaw in this entire series. I think that he's not going to be able to bring Amaya back just for that very reason, because we all know that you can make as many replicas as you want, but it's never going to be the same as the original. It's never going to be able to be the same as what you've lost. You know, you can make all these projections, but it's never the same. It's like watching a memory of like a loved one on a video or something. Like, you can see it and you can remember that memory, but it's not the same because they're not actually physically there with you. And so I think that's what the show is really trying to say here, is that even though Forrest wants to bring her back, he's constantly unsatisfied because there is no possible way that he can bring her back in the same way. And I think that's really what they're getting into here. And I think that's a really great arc for Forrest as a character. It keeps him to be a really sinister presence and someone that you really do fear, but also someone that you kind of pity as well, because he's so up his own ass in that way. Like, he has his own way of doing things and he's just very stubborn. And I just think Offerman is doing such a great job playing that character. And I'm really loving what we're getting with the Forrest character so far. So that's really everything going on story-wise here. Like I said, it was a pretty busy episode overall. There was a lot going on here. The directing, though, from Alex Garland, I just thought was absolutely wonderful. He did a really great job leaning into the thriller aspects, but also, again, really adding in some nice levity, something that he hasn't really done before in his other projects. And it's really great to see. I love the humor we're getting from Jamie and Lyndon and Stuart, and it's a lot of fun. And it's a good way of keeping the show fresh and exciting and just impressing me more, because I already knew that Alex Garland was a fantastic creator, but it's you know, stuff like that is really going a long way with me, and I think he's doing a great job. But also his writing, like I said, was just so superb in this episode. The way that he is very slowly building up to things like the mystery of Lily dying, or as I think it is, Lyndon dying, I think is wonderful. The parallels between Lily and Lyndon as well in this episode were really strong, because as it kind of mirrors what happened to Sergei in a way, where Sergei was someone who was he was so ahead of the curve, and this is something that Forrest was impressed by. But Lyndon was also very much ahead of the curve, and Forrest was threatened by that. So it's kind of interesting how you have someone like Sergey that Forrest was welcoming in with open arms because he was just so stunned by the research that his team had done. But because Lyndon is not doing something the way that he wants, he admonishes him for it. So I think that's a very interesting sort of connection there. I love the way they're setting things up. And like I said, I really do think Lily and Lyndon are going to end up working together. I'm excited to see how that does go. And just the themes of this episode of things like perfection, but also themes about themes like ignorance, which, Forrest is pretty much throughout the entire episode, and what it's trying to say about that, I think, is really well done. The cinematography, though, in this episode definitely really did stick out to me as well. That car chase especially, or not the car chase, but the scene with them in the car, I thought was very effective. I love the way that was done. The one thing that I was a little bit thrown off by, and I don't think a lot of people are talking about this, is the very opening scene in this episode. We see all of the characters in these different color palettes. You have Lily, who's in blue, and then you have Katie and you got Katie and Stuart, who are in red. And then I thought what this was trying to say is Lily is blue, which represents the good side, and then they represent the bad side, kind of just like a contrast in that way. But then Forrest is in green, and I don't really know what that means. I don't really know what Garland is trying to say there. What he might be trying to say is that Forrest just has such a different sort of, mindset from everyone else that's why he gets his own color. He's just so eccentric in that way, but I really don't know. Maybe if you guys can look into that, but it's just a minor complaint. It's not something that ruins the episode for me. It's something I noticed, and I thought it was cool, but I just don't really know what Garland's trying to say there. And then the score in this episode, I love the way they're using We Are the Unfortunate Ones in this episode, the way that it ended episode 3, but also in episode 4, and they have two completely different meanings now. I thought was so great. I love the way that Garland is using the music here, and then the main theme as well. I continue to eat up in this show for sure. And the pacing of this episode I thought was actually really good, minus the scene with Karl, which I'll just say right now, the Karl character, I'm just not really seeing the point of at this moment. I understand that Garland is trying to set up something here, but there's already so many characters in the show. I just don't really see how he fits into things other than him just being someone that is eventually going to help out Lily. But if they're doing what I think they're doing with Lyndon, that makes his character that much more pointless. So I just don't really see the point of the inclusion of the Karl character. I just don't think he serves much of a purpose here overall. But really, other than that, guys, this was a really strong episode for sure. I love the way they are heating things up. I'm very excited to see where things do go with Lily now basically being in the hands of devs, her fate basically being unknown. What's going to happen to Jamie? Where's Lyndon off to? What's going to happen between Forrest and Katie? I feel like there's a lot of tension that's starting to heat up there, and I'm really excited to see how that's all going to go. I feel like something big is really about to happen on this show, and we're just waiting for that to ignite, and we're just seeing the beginnings of things, and I am just really loving what we're getting so far. I think this is definitely a really, really great episode so far. This was definitely the strongest one so far for me, and I'm definitely going to give the 4th episode of Devs overall an A-. But over, guys, to my review this episode of Devs. So much guys saw this episode overall. Love your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.